For the last decade, the United Nations has marked December 3rd as the Day of Persons with Disabilities. The organization estimates that some 1 billion people in the world have a disability. About 1 in 5 of those has considerable difficulties functioning. We want to go inside the fight for equal rights and protection, and one man's story in Mexico. Our Franc Contreras is there. Frank.
Thanks, Elaine. Yes, this is the remarkable story of a young man named Ricardo Adair. He took on the Mexican justice system and took a case all the way to the Supreme Court. Basically, it hinges on this issue of whether or not disabled people can actually take care of themselves. When Ricardo was 19 years old, some lawyers contacted his parents and said, look, Ricardo won't be able to take care of himself. You need to get legal protection so that the parents could take every decision for him for the rest of his life. Imagine that. Of course, Ricardo, being 19, wanted some independence from his parents, and so he took on this legal case. It hinges on this United Nations Convention that was passed in 2006, the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. Article 12 of that convention, Elaine, is critical. It's called the right to legal capacity, or the right for decisions over yourself. The United Nations says this is a fundamental human right. So this case rides entirely upon this issue. People who watch legal cases globally for disabled people are watching this case very carefully. Here in Mexico, legal rights defenders say in this country, there's a general attitude that no, disabled people cannot take care of themselves.
The problem with Mexico is that it has still this paternalistic approach towards persons with disabilities, and it still thinks that it needs to protect persons with disabilities instead of respect their human rights.
Elaine first. Yes, Elaine, so you can hear that this is really an issue that is being very carefully watched, again, hinging on this critical issue of whether or not disabled people can take care of themselves.
And Frank, looking more broadly across developing countries, there's a strong link between poverty and disability. In developing countries, up to 20% of the poor are people with disabilities. So what's being done about this part of the issue in Mexico?
Well, the first part of that, Elaine, this idea that poverty and disabilities are connected. Actually, people we spoke with today, experts say that's correct, because children can become disabled in the process of their development if they don't have the kind of proper health care. And so in third world countries, developing world nations as they're known, this can take place quite often. Here in Mexico, there's an estimated nearly 10 to 15 million people with disabilities. Many of them are children, some of them are adults like Ricardo Adair. And the Mexican government, according to people who watch the issue very carefully from the rights advocacy groups here in Mexico, say that the government really hasn't done very much. And that's kind of surprising because, again, this was one of the countries that really supported the UN Convention for people with disabilities and their rights here. And so Mexico, really underscoring that at the international level, but at the national level here in policymaking, there's still a long way to go, Elaine.
All right, CCTV's Franc Contreras reporting live from Mexico City. Thanks.